Hey everyone, Rich Gasway here with a quick reminder about an awesome way to train your members on situational awareness that doesn't involve the expense of bringing me to your town. It's called the Situational Awareness Matters Online Academy. This online academy is designed to help first responders improve situational awareness and high-risk decision-making and to teach members everything they need to know about this topic for a crazy affordable price, only $97 a member. And it gets better. The pricing goes down as the number of members you enroll goes up. For example, if you enroll 31 or more members, the investment is just $49 a member. That's like half the cost of a decent pair of gloves. Since the Academy opened for enrollment in January, more than 800 students have enrolled, and for good reason. Did you know that lessons or issues related to situational awareness are consistently identified as contributing factors in near-miss and injury events? Please don't wait for a critical injury or fatality incident to happen in your organization. I work with many organizations that have had critical incidents and fatalities, and they're some of the most hurting organizations you can imagine. Please don't let that happen to you. I can help you take your understanding of situational awareness and high-risk decision-making to the level that it needs to be. Visit samatters.com, click the green button on the right side of the homepage labeled Online Academy. There are two enrollment levels. A premium level allows the students to have access to a live event with me each month where I interview thought leaders and then we take questions and answers from the students. Past thought leaders have included Dave Dotson, Dennis Rubin, Chris Naum, Doug Klein, Joe Pernesti, Ron Canterman, and more. So if you're interested, swing by the SA Matters website, click on the green button on the right side of the homepage. That's enough of the pre-show stuff. Roll that podcast intro. Today's episode is sponsored by Midwest Fire. For more than 20 years, Midwest Fire has been manufacturing high-quality tankers, tanker pumpers, and fire rescue vehicles in the United States and Canada. Keeping firefighters safe while enhancing their capabilities is what they do best. To learn more, go to MidwestFire.com.
This is Captain Ricky Mahaffey from the Waynesville Fire Department, and you are listening to SA Matters radio show with Dr. Rich Gasaway. The SA Matters mission is simple. They want to help us see the bad things coming in time to avoid bad outcomes.
Hello, and welcome to episode 182 of the Situational Awareness Matters radio show. I'm your host, Rich Gasaway. The purpose of this show is to improve situational awareness and decision-making for individuals and teams who work in high-risk, high-consequence, time-compressed environments with changing conditions. The SA Matters mission is simple, to help you see the bad things coming in time to avoid bad outcomes. Did you know that I've been sharing this message of situational awareness and high-risk decision-making in live program events for 12 years now and have trained just over 59,000 students, including first responders, industrial workers, military personnel, business leaders, medical professionals, utility workers, aviation workers, security personnel, and more. Really, this message is for anyone who works in an environment that's high risk and high consequence. If you or someone you know could benefit from training on situational awareness and high risk decision making, just ask them to reach out to me by visiting the samatters.com website. If you're new to this podcast, you got some homework to do by going back and listening to some past episodes. I've released a new episode every Tuesday, never missed a week for more than 3 years. No other podcast focused on improving worker safety even comes close to this track record. And I do this for you, the listener of this show. You truly inspire me. And let me say this, I'm here for the long run. And for the long run, I mean for so long as I'm able to share this message. A message of hope, a message of inspiration, and a message of encouragement for everyone who works in high-risk environments. I want to make sure you're able to develop and maintain strong situational awareness and that you know how to make quality, high-risk decisions. I'm dedicated to improving your safety and your survival and to helping you accomplish the most important goal of all, Go home to the ones who love you. And speaking of sharing the message, I'm coming to you today from beautiful Amsterdam, Netherlands, where I'm in town delivering 3 full-day situational awareness training programs for members of the Amsterdam Fire Brigade and other brigades throughout the Netherlands, as well as business leaders and industrial workers. This is part of a month-long international tour that I'm doing. So far, over the past 2 weeks, I've done programs in Sydney, Melbourne, and Perth, Australia, including a keynote presentation for the Institute of Fire Engineers Australia branch. And then I went on to Wellington, Christchurch, and Auckland, New Zealand, and included a program for the Institute of Fire Engineers New Zealand branch. Everyone has been so receptive to the message. This is my second trip to Australia, so it was really nice to get reconnected with some old friends and to make some new friends, both in Australia and in New Zealand. And Australians and New Zealanders are really easy to make friends with. They're just awesome, fun-loving people. But alas, I had to move on to the Netherlands, where I am now enjoying my first day here of this will be 2-week visit to the Netherlands and Belgium. A few weeks ago, I did a program in Evansville, Indiana, where Evansville Fire Chief Mike Conley did an amazing job of getting sponsors for the event. From Chief Conley's efforts, this 2-day event cost his department nothing. They were able to pay for everything with sponsorships. I tell departments all the time, you can host a great training event, mine or someone else's, by getting sponsors. Usually the suggestion is met with skepticism, but not in Chief Conley's case. He just said to me, show me how to do that. And I did. And he went out and he asked for sponsors. And he come back and told me that it really wasn't that hard to find sponsors to step up and offer assistance. Sponsors for the Evansville program included Vectren. That's the gas and electric company serving Evansville and other parts of Indiana. Gas and electric companies are great sponsors for situational awareness programs because they can send their employees to the training as well. Deaconess Hospital stepped up as a sponsor, and hospitals are great sponsors too because they can send hospital employees to this training. University of Southern Indiana stepped up as well. Universities are great sponsors because they like to partner with their communities, and the university could send their security personnel to this training. Other sponsors included the Evansville Firefighters Credit Union, Old National Bank, Global Emergency Products, Hoosier Fire Equipment, Mission Barbecue, Public Safety Medical, and Siegel's Uniforms. When the dust settled on his efforts, Chief Conley was able to raise $15,000. That paid for the program, a situational awareness book for all the attendees, paid for the venue, and it provided lunch for all the attendees for both days. And because all of that added up didn't total $15,000, he now has seed money for a future program. How cool is that? I tell departments with limited budgets all the time that this is the way to go, and it is. If you want to host a program but you have limited resources, contact me and I'll help you do what Evansville did. Host a program that may cost your department nothing. I always say where the will is strong, a way can be found. And folks, this training on situational awareness and high-risk decision-making, it's a game changer. How do I know that? Because the attendees at the live events tell me all the time. They tell me at break, they tell me at lunch, they tell me at the end of the day. They send me emails, they post on my social media, they post on their social media. Understanding how to develop and maintain situational awareness can truly, and I mean truly, save your life. There's no simpler way to say it. One of the questions I get asked all the time by readers and listeners are, when are you going to be in my area, or where are you going to be next? Great question, and I've made it real easy to find out. I've created a link on the homepage of my website. It's a blue box on the right side that says Upcoming Event Schedule. You just go to samatters.com, click the blue box. It'll show you where all the programs are going to be. And if you want to save some money hosting a program, you can host a companion program. A companion program is a program on an adjoining day to a program that I'm already doing. So if you see I'm delivering a program within a few hours of where you're going to be and you want to be a companion, contact me and you can save as much as 20% off of your program fee. Okay, in today's feature segment, it's part 2 of an interview that I had with members of the Colorado Springs Fire Department, which I recorded a few weeks ago while I was still in the United States. Part 1 is episode 181, which aired last Tuesday if you want to go back and catch the first part of it. I did a program for Colorado Springs Fire Department on May 31st this year. That was my second program for the department, and I have been so impressed with their approach to training that I asked them to come onto the show and share what they're doing, and they agreed. When I'm done with the feature segment, stick around, and I'll tell you where you can attend an upcoming Situational Awareness Matters Tour Stop event. Who knows? Maybe I'll be right in your state or right in your county soon. Okay, let's pick up on the conversation where we're talking about how modern fire research can be applied to training and operations.
One of the things we started talking about a lot on our crew, and the senior guys have started pushing down to me, because realistically I'm still pretty junior with 7 years on, and I don't have the amount of fires under my belt that a lot of in the 70s, 80s guys were getting in their first 10 years, was data with regards to where victims are located and thinking about why you're searching, where you're searching, rather than just we go in and we always search right hand, or we go and we always search left hand. It's if you're a newer firefighter and you get off your probationary year and now all of a sudden you're riding a truck and you're part of the search team, you have to make a decision of where to go based on time of day. You're not just, well, in the academy we always went left, or in the academy we always went right. Now we started to look at the data and say, okay, well, people are generally found in bedrooms and in egress areas, so where is that? And I'm going to go that direction and work that way. And it's that research has now led us to helping people make better decisions on the fire ground when they don't necessarily have the experience that would lead them to understanding that. It's the, okay, well, I know I was taught this and this makes sense, so I have to start thinking through why I'm going, what direction I'm going. And so that's one of the biggest learning things for me in the last 5 or 6 years, is trying to think through all of that and look at that data.
Tying to that, Jesse, question for Jason. Are you guys still teaching in the academy left-hand wall search, right-hand wall search? Or are you bringing in this knowledge of where victims are most likely to be found based on the time of day of the scenario that you're giving them, and allowing them to resiliently make decisions about how to change up their search methods to perhaps reach a victim quicker? Integrate what Jesse just said to what training's doing, Jason.
Yeah, we basically do both. So we have those JPRs, and they start out learning the basic search. So you go in and you pick a direction and you stay on the wall the entire time. And then we slowly incorporate, well, if I feel something off on a distance, can I let go of the wall for a second? And yeah, we give them that latitude as they progress through the academy. And it's a pretty quick transition in 17 weeks to go from, your first week, you're touching a wall, you never leave it, you call out every door and window, to targeting areas of survivability. It's not something that happens in that 17-week period, but we do introduce that. So we're challenging them after they obtain that basic skill and basic search skills, where they're gridding out and they're always with their partner and they're in constant contact with the wall and their partner, to give them some latitude to where one person can sit at the doorway and the other person zips around the bedroom and covers that area real quick, or VEIS introduced in the academy. So what's your first room you want to VEIS? Having them make those choices as they start to get toward the end of the academy. But that does take years to develop those techniques and those instincts. We're just scratching the surface in the academies.
And we're starting to talk more about, I know when I was in the academy and came out of the academy, it was when we went into search in our training tower, you were always on your hands and knees and crawling on all fours. And we've started trying to teach, definitely during the first probationary year, searching based on conditions. You don't always need to crawl. You can duck walk, you can a 3-point slide through, just move as quickly as you can to get to where you need to be safely. And there's reasons as to why you change your search position or how you're moving through a building. And I know for me, I didn't have that experience coming out of the academy and on a fire early on, forced open the front door, masked up, and I was with a senior driver. And I went through, and I was on my hands and knees crawling, and I felt a tap on my shoulder. And he said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "We're searching." And he said, just stand up, because it was smoky, but it was really cool. And it was a house on a slab, so there's no fear of having a sound because we're going through, because there was no void space below us. So he said, stand up, let's move through this a little more quickly. And so that's what made me start thinking, okay, well, there's got to be a better way to do this. And so we started looking into different ways of doing that. And one thing we've been trying to teach is looking at the research that was done on how to move hose with nozzle forward tactics, those things. Can we use that same sort of stance and the same movements to get through buildings quickly without a hose line when you're searching? And so it's not new positions everybody's having to learn. Everybody already knows these things because you're already taught in the academy. This is how I clamp slide through a building. This is how I move around a room real quickly with a hose line. Now just take the hose line out of it, and it's the same movement. And so people aren't having to learn all sorts of new things. It's just a faster, more efficient way to move to where you need to be and where the victims are, because that's why we're inside searching. It's not just to check the box that, we searched left or right. We're in there because there are potentially people there, and we have to get to where they are.
Yeah. Thank you for clarifying that for me, Jesse. Bryan, you'd said that you guys have conducted some of your own research and done some adaptation on research. What's some of the things that you've done there as far as research based in Colorado Springs? Talk me through an example or two.
Well, one of the things that we've done is doing our own research on, and this is something I wasn't involved in. It was probably 14 or 15 years ago, but doing our own research on transitional fire attack, and if that was something that we could employ and we could do, and that was something that our organization did in the early 2000s, and we got some scientific data back from that, but it certainly wasn't as in depth as the scientific research from UL. So that was one example. Another example is there's been guys on our job, there's been firefighters on our job who've done research on a lot of different topics and a lot of different specific tactics to how do we make our organization better. And one of the ones I was involved in some research on line of duty deaths in the fire service, and specifically revolving around vertical ventilation and how many firefighters have actually been killed from vertical ventilation, and released 2 papers on that, specifically statistical data that we can use to show that while it's often we hear it around the firehouse kitchen table a lot. You hear people talk about it's one of the most dangerous things that we do on the fireground. In reality, it really isn't, statistically speaking, at least. Not as if there isn't some danger to it. Obviously, there is. But really, if you want to play on the statistics, you want to understand statistics from a fire behavior and a building construction aspect, from building collapse, you are more likely to be injured or killed as the first arriving, or as the first hose line being stretched into the building and falling through the floor, having something fall on top of you, or being caught in a flashover, or as the primary search team, the first 4 members of the organization. So that was something that we took that information and we built our model focusing on fire attack on that. How do we change our model? Well, for the fire attack, it was a little bit of situational awareness with our 360s and understanding where the fire is and the best way to deploy a hose line, the best way to search. Some of the stuff that Jason and Jesse were talking about, targeting searches and understanding where we're searching. Flowing water to make sure that we had an instance where we had, and I was involved in it, really kicked off all of my passion for understanding fire behavior and ventilation was I very nearly created a horrible situation in Colorado Springs about 12, 13 years ago by doing just what I was taught to do. And it never really dawned on me until about a year later that my actions on the fire ground very nearly cost 2 people potentially their lives, because I put a fan in a front door without an exit, and out of that adding all that fresh air to a underventilated fire triggered a flashover, and the host team had to bail out. And given what would have happened that day, what happened that day in 2004, whenever it occurred, to 2017. That's the reason that I really started to do this, is because I didn't want the next firefighter who came along behind me to make that decision, to make I always take the fan of the front door. I always put it in every single time. I wanted them to understand what they were doing. And that probably wouldn't happen today, because one thing that we were always taught, and I'm sure you were taught, was don't flow water unless you see the fire. Well, they were in a superheated atmosphere, and now we teach people, if it's hot, the nozzle's open and the nozzle is moving around the area, we're cooling that environment down. So that would have happened today. Their instinct was get out, because that's what we had taught them. And it goes back to me that we don't ever, this is not my line, but we don't ever rise to the occasion. We always revert back to, what is your basic level of training? What is your instinct? What have you been taught to have as an instinct? And in that situation, it was to bail out, and it was to put the fan in the front door. And it created a flash door, quite frankly. And fortunately, no one was injured. But it triggered something in me, and I had a sick feeling in my stomach for a couple weeks until I decided to do something about it. And that's what it's been for 13 years for me, or 14 years, is making sure that the next guy that comes in line doesn't make a bad decision, or at least I put them in a situation to make the right decision.
And I was actually a direct product of his learning about that, because when he came and they talked to our academy, when I was in the academy, and I learned that story, and we talked about all of that. Within my first year, I was on a fire with an officer who's since retired, but he told me to turn the fan in the Charlie side of the building when the hose team had made an entry on the Alpha side and hadn't made the fire yet. And I was able to say, I don't think that's what we're supposed to do. That's going to push everything back towards them. And he said, I don't care, do it. Well, this is going to sound bad, but I went around the back of the building with a fan and then just didn't start it because I knew it wasn't going to work. It was going to go bad. And so when I came back around,
the fan had trouble.
Yeah, I came back around and said, "Hey, man, sorry, boss. Yeah, sorry, boss. I couldn't get it started." And so he proceeded to tell me, "Do you know what you're doing? Do you understand how to start a fan?" And I took my lumps for that, and I let him just believe her at that point. He doesn't know how to start a fan. We had the discussion later, and what actually happened was the same senior driver that tapped me on the shoulder when I was searching on my hands and knees, he heard the discussion and stepped in, and he's the one who actually got behind me and told that boss, "You're wrong. We don't do it that way, and here's why." And he fought that battle for me and gave me the confidence to continue to speak up, because I knew I had a senior guy behind me that would actually back me on the things that I said.
And that kind of goes back to that question you were asking earlier about how do you teach younger firefighters? Well, it's that mentorship of that senior driver. He's learned when he can push and when he can confront his superior officer through experience. And he's obviously taught that to someone with 1 year on the job in that situation. And that's the things we have to do as an organization.
And I'll just say from that perspective is I think that it's vital to have a senior firefighter or a senior person in the firehouse, whether it's a driver or a firefighter, to be able to be that connective tissue between the officer and some of the younger firefighters. Because you talked about that before with, is there a process for firefighters to speak up? Brand new fourth class firefighters. And the answer is no. And it's probably not going to happen. I would never do it probably as a fourth class. There's a brand new probationary firefighter, and they're probably not going to do it to Jason or I as a lieutenant. But we do have Jesse Weddle, who's our senior firefighter in the house. And he can come to me and say, "Hey, maybe we need to do it different this way, or maybe we can do this, or have you thought about doing it this way?" And I think it's integral for crews to, as an officer, to be able to build those relationships and have those people that you can rely on to be able to have maybe a closed door meeting or a pulley off to the side and say, "Hey, boss, what about this? Have you thought about this?" Because the decision-making process should not be linear. It should involve everybody on the fire ground. I understand the decision. It revolves around the company officer, the chief officer, but you need as much information as you can get.
Yeah. The sharing of those two near misses, I'll just consider a value add to our discussion. I really didn't know that those stories were going to end up being shared, but they put an exclamation point right on the things that we're talking about. So thanks to both of you for sharing those events. Last question I have for you guys is, what are you doing in the Springs to make the fire and medical training more realistic, both in the Recruit Academy and for line personnel so that they are in as close as they can be to real world or realistic environments when they're practicing and when they're making decisions?
I'll start by commenting on what we do in the recruit academies. And that's probably the least realistic training we do is the fire academies, because we're limited in where we can operate. You know, we have a drill tower, a concrete building with gas props. So our fire environment is not that similar to a true structure fire. What we do to enhance that is a few things. So we'll take photos of actual buildings in varying fire conditions, and as they come off the truck from the back seat, off the engine, from the back seat, we hold a picture in front of their face, whether it's an actual printout picture or something on an iPad, and we're starting to initiate that size up, you know, where they get it in their head, no, the officer is not the only person doing a size up, everybody's doing a size up. So we'll show them, here's your smoke conditions as you're approaching. You're just a nozzleman, but here's the smoke conditions. This is what you're seeing on arrival. What do you think about that? And again, it's that second half of the academy where we're introducing these things. So they get not necessarily the conditions inside when they make fire attack, but they have a visual of, I'm entering this structure with these smoke conditions, and that's okay. Or you show them that picture of heavy black smoke, something that looks like, you know, the flow path indicating and the smoke conditions are indicating it's about to flash. Are they making a decision to go in, or are they saying, maybe we should hit this from the outside, maybe transitional is a better option, maybe we need a bigger line? We also went away from blackout masks for the most part. And honestly, it was a class I saw a few years ago, just before I went to the academy. I'm like, why do we have them going into zero-vis environments and practicing these skills? And one of our training captains at the time started using just a little cellophane paper, Press and Seal is the brand. Stick it on their mask. They can see light and dark. Everything's kind of cloudy and blurry. Mm-hmm. Much more realistic, much more like smoke conditions, right?
Yeah, very much.
So those are some of the things we do on the, you know, as far as fire attack, medical. You know, we have mannequins and dummies in our tower. So as they remove those from the fire, they rescue the victim. They don't just drop them at the bottom of the ladder or pull them out the front door and kick them into the grass. They have to wait to be relieved by a medical team. So they have to initiate CPR. They might have to take their mask, helmet, gloves off and start medical procedures. And that's getting more realistic, so that when they actually, if they get the opportunity to make a grab, they're not walking out the front door looking to put the person on the front porch and go back in and finish their task. Just get to that muscle memory, that mindset, that the closer we can get to reality, the better off they are. So and a lot of stuff, it's simulated. So we'll describe the fire environment when they enter each room. Even if there's no smoke or fire lit in the tower, we're telling them, you're feeling a lot of heat after you open this door. We're trying to initiate a reaction of them opening the hand line, like Bryan was referring to earlier. Flow water and get in the habit of flowing water early. So a lot of it has to be their imagination and ours. But when we get the chance, and I'm going to ask these two guys to talk about our summer drill last year. When we get the opportunity as a department to make things more realistic and get acquired structures, we have a much better outcome, much better realistic training. I'll let them talk about summer drill 2016 if you want.
So there was a new, typically in the past, are basically summer drills, the yearly evaluations of company operations were done at our tower in the same situation that the recruits are in an environment that's very controlled, and the smoke conditions aren't exactly what they would be at a fire. This last year, we had the opportunity to get some acquired structures at an area college that was going to be demoing some old homes to build some new dorms. And so we were able to actually respond not just with single company evolutions, but full fire response evolutions that took us all the way from
first arriving companies, no matter who they were, had to establish command, and then the additional arriving companies were assigned the different tasks on a fire ground. And one of the things that it allowed us to do was to see how companies that don't typically work together actually work together, because they pulled people from all over the city to respond at the exact same time to this place. And also, one of the things that we preach to new recruits as well is you need to not only understand your job, but you have to have an understanding what all the other jobs on the fire ground are doing and the tasks that have to be accomplished to get the final goal accomplished. And so I was part of the ladders team, and so we were laddering and we did some BIS, and we'd accomplished that. We still had air available within our bottles, and the hose team had to back out because they were low on air. So we were immediately shifted into, okay, well, now we're on fire attack. So we had to move on to the hose line, and that's kind of more realistic. Just because those people are out of air, the fire attack doesn't stop. Somebody has to continue it. And so those realistic shifting between positions and getting new assignments, that's the most realistic summer drill and evaluations that we've done. And it took a lot of work from the training division to accomplish, but it was worth it. And everybody that I talked to that went through it said that was the most valuable training they'd had in a very long time with regards to summer drill.
Yeah.
Some of the particulars to add, from the training division side, what we did to make it more realistic was we put smoke machines on every level of these houses. They were 2-story balloon frame or three-story balloon frame with a basement. So 4 levels of fire, and sometimes the whole building was on fire. We had posters that we made of smoke or fire or a person in the window and put those up around the building. So as they encountered that, they might do a 360 and see a victim in the window or the silhouette of a person in the window, and they reported that and reacted to that. Something else we did, we had a power line that was down across the front yard. So if somebody contacted that, they were tapped out. They were taken out of their crew. So just like a real scenario. And then we had to have the ambulance or another engine company tend to that firefighter that's injured. And we just rolled with it in that same fashion, just like it was real life. And it worked out. Yeah, it was probably one of the best training experiences in my career here with the Springs. And we got that feedback from a lot of companies as well.
Let me ask you a question based on a scenario that someone else had done, and I'm just wondering if this happened in the Springs. When you put that picture of a victim up on the window, say on the 2nd or 3rd floor, did anybody doing a 360 around the building not see that victim in the window?
Yeah, I think maybe one person. Yeah. Probably, if I had to guess, 30%. 30% of people do a 360, and they're not necessarily thinking about what they're looking for. Plus, like I said, 3-story building. We often had the victim on the 3rd floor to make it the most challenging. So they're looking, you want to look straight ahead, right? You're looking at that ground floor mostly, and then you're looking up every once in a while. And yeah, that victim was missed often. A lot of times that second 360, like the truck company officer coming in, caught that, or just crews that were getting ready to do some other task. They're like, there's a victim on the Charlie side 3rd floor window. They just aired it on the radio, and then we went from there. But yeah, obviously people did miss them, and they were very obvious pictures.
Yeah,
3 foot, 4 foot picture of a person upper torso.
and when that happens, I can pretty much guess that the person that happened to had a very visceral response, and they learned something very important that day when they missed that victim on the 3rd floor about how to conduct their size ups. That was probably a very valuable takeaway for those people that happened to.
Yeah, hopefully.
All right. So last thing, at the front end of the conversation, you mentioned irons and ladders. So let's just swing back and so you guys can all take off your Colorado Springs Fire Department hats and let's take you away from your employment so there's no conflict in this discussion, and talk a little bit about what it is that you do with this organization and what you teach and how you do it and who you do it for and how people can find you and that kind of thing.
Well, it's an organization that myself and two firefighters, Ryan Royal and Nick Chappell on CSFD, that we started this in, I think, 2009 or 2010. And it was really based off of just to perceive a need within our own organization. It started within our own organization. And we had a lot of requests from people outside of our organization saying, hey, if we've heard about this forcible entry class that you guys do, would you come to our organization and do it? And really, like most things that happen this way, it just sort of took off. And so we teach forcible entry class, a ladders class, a ground ladders class, teach a class that we title Ventilation and Water, which is really about coordinating your fire attack and understanding. The focus on that is really the first 5 minutes of your fire ground and decision making on the first 5 minutes, because we're not just making this. All company officers and chief officers are certainly not the only ones who are making decisions. People, every person on the fire ground is making a decision on some level, whether it's tactically or strategically. And so it's a class really that just focuses on that. And focuses on spraying water and ventilating the building and searching the building and combining those two elements to most effectively search the building. And you can find us we're on Facebook at ironsandladders.com. You can get to our website, ironsandladders.com. We regularly update for classes, and we're scheduling classes now for 2018. We'll be at the Mile High Firefighters Conference in Denver next month in October the 13th through the 15th. And we're going to kick off our 2018 at the Portland Firemanship Conference up in Portland, Oregon, which benefits a couple organizations up there.
Okay, good. Did I miss anything that we need to swing back to and have a conversation on, or did we cover all the topics that you guys are interested in having a conversation about today?
I think so. I think we got everything.
All right. Well, thanks for coming in again on Labor Day to do this interview with me. I really appreciate the gift of your guys' time and the sharing of your experiences and your wisdom. Very, very powerful, very valuable, and I just can't wait to get this out there for people to hear.
I would appreciate the opportunity, Rich. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, I have a favor to ask of you. Yep, you, on the other end of this microphone. You listening to this podcast on your treadmill. You, the one driving your car. You, the one that's taking your dog for a walk. And even you, the one who fell asleep while you were listening to this episode. Wake up! I need a favor. I launched this podcast to give voice to those who've experienced near-miss events. The stories that have been shared with me at live events are amazing, incredible, and very educational. But we need to get those lessons shared to a larger audience. That's why I launched this podcast to begin with. To give you, the person who's had a near-miss event, a platform to share your lessons learned. So if you've experienced or witnessed a near-miss and would like to have this platform, my podcast platform, to share your lessons learned, contact me. SAMatters.com, Contact Us tab, top of the home page. Think about it for a moment. The lessons learned from your worksite near-miss event could save someone's life. That's really powerful. What a wonderful gift it would be. If you want to share your experience, contact me. If you want to send me some feedback, I'd love to hear from you. Just go to SAMatters.com, click the Contact Us tab. That sends me an email. You can also send me a message on Facebook, Twitter, or on LinkedIn. And in the event that you might have missed me somewhere along the route and haven't gotten connected with me, I want to tell you about where I've been recently. Recent tour stops have included the NASA Glenn Research Center in Cleveland, Ohio, the Tennessee Safety and Health Conference in Nashville, and then I also did programs in Evansville, Indiana, Redmond, Washington, Lexington County, South Carolina, where I got to see the total eclipse in totality. Thank you, Assistant Chief Dave Fulmer, for tipping me up to come early. Chesapeake, Virginia, Richmond, Virginia, Topeka, Kansas, Kansas City, Davis, California, Dallas, Texas, Sydney, Australia, Melbourne, Australia, Perth, Australia, Wellington, New Zealand, Christchurch, New Zealand, and Auckland, New Zealand. And, of course, where I am now in Amsterdam, Netherlands, October 16, 17, 18 in Amsterdam, and then on to Antwerp, Belgium, October 23, 24, and 25 in Antwerp. For this international tour and all, when the dust settles on this trip, I will have delivered 14 programs and enjoyed 77 flight hours during the month of October. And it's not the number of programs that worries me. I love that part. It's not even the flights that worry me. It's the number of time zones that I'm going to have to endure on this crazy, crazy trip. Man, I hope I'm able to hold it together. Once I'm back from the international tour, if you want to join me on November 2nd, I'll be in Billings, Montana, doing a program for Phillips 66 Refinery. November 4th, Madison, Wisconsin. November 9 to 13, Clearwater Beach, Florida. November 16th, Billings, Montana again, for another program for Phillips 66 Refinery. Then November 20 in Boston, Massachusetts. Then December 1, 2, and 3 back in Evansville, Indiana for a program for Scott Township Fire Department. December 5th, the All Hazards Incident Management Team Conference in San Diego. December 7 and 8, a program in Niagara Falls, Canada. December 11th, the Cardinal Joint Fire Protection District near Youngstown, Ohio. September 13 and 14 in Solent, Ohio, evening programs. September 14, 15, 16, Twinsburg, Ohio, daytime programs. 3 one-day program repeated or done 3 times. If you want to see all the locations for upcoming Situational Awareness Matters tour stops, head over to the SA Matters website, click that blue box on the homepage. Check back often because it's always changing. If you're interested in hosting a program, and you need to know that I got a couple of dates left in November and December, and I'm actively booking 2018 right now. So if your company, agency, association, regional conference, state conference, or national event might be looking for a speaker on situational awareness and high-risk decision-making, have them contact me, samatters.com, Contact Us tab. I have great staff. They'll make the process very easy for you, I promise. The last time I was delivering programs in southwest Minnesota, I stopped and visited the sponsor of this podcast show, Midwest Fire. Midwest Fire is a fire truck manufacturing company that makes amazing, all poly-bodied fire apparatus, and it's changing the industry. If you've not checked them out yet, you need to. Go to MidwestFire.com. That's MidwestFire.com. Anyhow, while I was there, I got a chance to sit down and talk to some of their employees about what separates Midwest Fire from their competitors. Let's listen into a conversation I had with engineer Tyler LeBrun about lean manufacturing and how this differentiates Midwest Fire from their competitors. So Tyler, in a conversation that we had earlier, you mentioned the term lean process or lean manufacturing. And then when we were out on the shop floor, you were like snapping around these Japanese terms that, I guess in the lean manufacturing world means something. What is all this, voodoo magic of lean manufacturing or lean process? What does it mean, and why would a customer even care that you run a lean facility?
Well, one of the big things with lean is it's very focused on the customer. Basically, you look at it as what the customer is willing to pay for. There's waste in our process. There's waste in everybody's process that they have if they own any type of business. And what waste is defined as is anything the customer is not willing to pay for. We had a good example down there of, maybe you've been in some different shops and seen stuff just scattered around everywhere, like maybe a floor jack, like somebody used it and left it right there. Well, now the next time somebody wants to go find that floor jack, if they've got to walk around for 5 or 10 minutes, that's a waste that the customer's not willing to pay for. They don't want our guys to be down here wandering around looking for parts. They want them to be putting things onto their truck, and that stuff is value added. The walking around and stuff that you're not willing to pay for is non-value added. And that's really what drives down and brings us to be able to offer something better to the customer, that we are building a truck more efficiently, which obviously passes savings on to them. We talked about our inventory control system, Kanban, one of those fun Japanese words, that basically allows for a system to be around our parts ordering that the operators control that they go down, they reach a minimum point, they pull a card, they do that kind of stuff, but the parts are always there for them. Not only are the parts always there, but there's not an excess amount of those parts, which costs us money to carry, which we would then obviously, no doubt, have to pass on to the customer. But by reducing all these costs, getting rid of all the waste, we're really able to better give the customer a more quality truck, faster and possibly at less cost than a competitor.
So everybody here, I assume, has to go through some training to learn how to be part of a lean process manufacturing?
Yep. So there's a couple of different ways that we've done that. There's been some guys that have been able to go out and do actual hands-on training at some seminars or that kind of stuff. We've also gone out and taken tours of some real-world class facilities in the area that we've been lucky enough to have. We also do some mentorship. That's something that I've been able to take my experience and kind of help the guys look at all that kind of stuff. But it really boils down to having a team that's willing to work together and continuously improve. And that continuous improvement is the big thing, is that we don't have a set goal in mind that we are going to be at X in 2016 and then we're never going to do anything again. Lean is really about continuous improvement and just realizing that you're constantly in the pursuit of perfection. If you're not improving, you're on the decline. So that's really some of the ideas behind that, the continuous improvement, and obviously training the employees.
Well, there you have it, folks. Continuous self-improvement in lean manufacturing. It's what separates Midwest Fire from their competitors. Check them out at MidwestFire.com. Thank you to Midwest Fire President Sarah Atchison and all your staff for your awesome commitment to improving the safety of first responders. I really appreciate your support of my mission. Hey, if you're not part of the SA Matters community of learners yet, what are you waiting for? There are over 9,000 people connected here on SA Matters, sharing ideas about how to improve situational awareness, how to make better decisions under stress, and how to train employees to be critical thinkers and resilient problem solvers. And joining is free. Joining also gets you my monthly email newsletter that contains featured content from the blog and the podcast. It really is the best way to stay in touch with me. The easiest way to join is to text SA Matters to 22828. That's the letter S, the letter A, the word matters, all together one word, SA Matters, to 22828. You'll get a message back about getting access to my program handouts. That's because I use this same method for people who attend live programs to become members of the community and to get the handout. So you'll get the handout. If you want to see what a program is like and the things that are being taught, that'll just consider that bonus content for you for signing up here. If you want to get connected with me on Twitter, you can follow Rich Gasaway at Rich Gasaway on Twitter. If you want to get connected with me on LinkedIn, you can search for Rich Gasaway on LinkedIn. If you want to check out my YouTube video channel, you can search SA Matters TV, all one word, SA Matters TV, on YouTube. And on Facebook, you can like the SA Matters page on Facebook. Well, that's it. Episode 182 is complete. Thank you to my guests from Colorado Springs Fire Department, Lieutenant Jason Buckingham from Station 8, Firefighter Jesse Weddle from Station 8, and Lieutenant Bryan Lynch from Station 1. Thank you to our awesome podcast sponsor, Midwest Fire. Thank you to all the companies, agencies, and organizations that have hosted live events. Thank you to all those who attended the first ever virtual training event on National Situational Awareness Day on September 26th. And thank you to the more than 800 students who have enrolled in the SA Matters Online Academy. But most importantly, thank you, the listeners of this podcast show, for sharing some of your valuable time with me today. I really appreciate your support of the SA Matters mission. Be safe out there, and may the peace of the Lord and strong situational awareness be with you always.
You've been listening to the Situational Awareness Matters radio show with Dr. Richard B. Gasaway. If you are interested in learning more about situational awareness, human factors, and decision-making under stress, visit samatters.com. If you are interested in booking Dr. Gasaway for an upcoming event, visit his personal website at richgasaway.com.